I've worked hard my entire life. 69 years of pushing through, surviving, building something from nothing. My hands aren't soft like those young folks today. They're weathered, telling stories of cleaning other people's homes, working double shifts at the hospital as a nurse's aide, and later managing the small convenience store my late husband, Bernard, and I scraped together every penny to buy. Millicent Jones, that's what they call me when they need something. Mother Jones when they're trying to be sweet. Just Millie to the few real friends I've kept all these years in our Atlanta neighborhood. But lately, there's another name I've been hearing whispered when they think I'm not listening. The forgetful old lady. I may be getting older, but there's nothing wrong with my hearing. Or my memory, despite what my daughter-in-law Vanessa wants everyone to believe. The convenience store, Jones's Corner Market, sits at Abernathy Boulevard and Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. For 32 years, that store was our life. Bernard worked the register while I managed inventory and kept the books. Even after he passed from heart failure 8 years ago, I kept it running. My son Marcus helped when he could, but he has his own career as an accountant at one of those big firms downtown. Marcus is a good boy. Always was. Studious, respectful, ambitious in the right ways. He was the first in our family to go to college, and I worked extra shifts to make sure he could focus on his studies instead of taking on too many jobs. I remember how proud Bernard was at Marcus's graduation, standing tall in his only suit, pressing his handkerchief to his eyes when our son walked across that stage at Morehouse College. "That's our boy Millie," he had whispered, squeezing my hand. "That's our legacy right there." Legacy. That word has been on my mind a lot lately. Marcus met Vanessa at some corporate event 5 years ago. She works in real estate, always dressed immaculately with those sharp blazers and heels that must cost more than our monthly mortgage payment used to be. She's pretty, I'll give her that. Smart too, but there's something calculated in the way she looks at people, like she's always taking inventory of what they might be worth to her. When they got married 3 years ago, I was happy for Marcus. He deserved someone ambitious, someone who understood his world. The wedding was bigger than anything our family had ever done, held at some vineyard north of the city, with centerpieces that cost more than my first car. I felt out of place among Vanessa's friends and family, with their private school accents and casual conversations about vacation homes. "Mom, just enjoy it," Marcus had said, noticing my discomfort. "This is what success looks like. Isn't this what you and Dad worked for?" I smiled and nodded, but I wasn't sure. Bernard and I never equated success with material things. Success to us meant security, respect in the community, and raising a son with strong values. But I kept those thoughts to myself. This was Marcus's day, not mine to question. After the wedding, I continued running the store, though my arthritis was making it harder. Marcus would stop by once a week, usually on Sundays after church, to check on me and sometimes look over the books. I never asked for help, but I appreciated it. Everything changed about 8 months ago. I had a small fall in the store, nothing serious, just tripped over a box I'd left out while restocking. Mrs. Patterson from the hair salon next door happened to be there and made a bigger deal of it than necessary, calling Marcus right away. "Mom, this is concerning," he said when he arrived, Vanessa trailing behind him with that pinched look she gets when she has to come to this part of town. "Maybe it's time to think about stepping back." "From a little stumble? I've been falling and getting back up before you were born," I replied, embarrassed by the fuss. That evening, as I was closing up, Vanessa approached me while Marcus was in the back checking something in the storeroom. "Millicent," she said, never Mom or even Mrs. Jones, always Millicent, like we were distant acquaintances. "Have you thought about what this place is worth?" I looked at her, confused. "Worth? It's not for sale." She laughed lightly, that practiced laugh she uses at their dinner parties. Everything has a price. This neighborhood is changing. Developers are moving in. This corner lot could fetch a very good sum. I felt a chill despite the warm spring evening. This store is my life's work. Bernard and I built it from nothing. And you should be proud, she said, patting my arm in a way that made me feel like a child. But at your age, wouldn't you rather enjoy retirement? Let Marcus and me handle the business side of things. You've worked hard enough. Before I could respond, Marcus returned, and Vanessa's face transformed into a mask of concern. We're just worried about you, that's all, she said, her voice softening for his benefit. That night I couldn't sleep. The store wasn't just a building or a business. It was the physical manifestation of everything Bernard and I had sacrificed for. Every extra shift, every vacation never taken, every small luxury denied, it was all in those walls. And more than that, it was where neighborhood folks knew they could come when they were a few dollars short until payday, where the local kids got their first jobs, where community news was shared across the counter. But I also wasn't naive. I knew the neighborhood was changing. New condos were going up just 3 blocks away. The old barber shop had been replaced by a coffee place, charging $5 for a basic cup. Property values were rising and taxes with them. The next morning I called my old friend Evelyn. We've known each other since our children were in elementary school together, and she had retired from teaching a few years back. Her daughter had helped her set up her finances for retirement. Ev, I need some advice from someone I trust, I said after we'd caught up on neighborhood gossip. What's on your mind? Millie. I explained about the fall, about Vanessa's questions regarding the store's worth. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Millie, do you have your affairs in order? A will, power of attorney, that sort of thing. Bernard and I made wills when Marcus was born. Nothing fancy, just the basics with a local lawyer. Haven't looked at it in years. You might want to update that. Things change. And maybe talk to a financial advisor, someone who specializes in small business owners, just to know your options. I took her advice and made an appointment with a financial advisor named Richard Washington, recommended by Evelyn's daughter. He was a middle-aged black man with gentle eyes and a patient way of explaining things. Mrs. Jones, your store sits on a valuable piece of real estate now, he confirmed after reviewing my documents. But more importantly, you've built a profitable business with loyal customers that has value beyond just the land. He helped me understand my options. Selling outright, leasing the property while selling the business, keeping everything but hiring management or various combinations thereof. Whatever you decide, make sure it's documented properly, he advised. Update your will, consider a living trust, and make your wishes clear. I left his office with a folder full of information and a head swirling with possibilities. I decided not to mention the meeting to Marcus or Vanessa yet. I needed time to think. But time, it seemed, was something Vanessa didn't want to give me. The following Sunday, they arrived at my house instead of the store. Marcus looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot in my living room as Vanessa took charge of the conversation. We've been thinking about your situation, Millicent, she began, perched on the edge of my sofa like she might catch something if she sat back. And we've come up with a perfect solution. Marcus cleared his throat. What Vanessa means, Mom, is that we're concerned about you being alone, especially after that fall. I've had one fall in decades of working, and suddenly I'm an invalid. I tried to keep the edge out of my voice. Vanessa's smile tightened. Of course not. But prevention is better than cure, isn't it? We think it would make sense for you to move into Golden Sunset Assisted Living. It's very exclusive, and we've already toured it. They have an opening next month. I looked at my son, searching for the boy I raised, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. I'm not moving into any home, I said firmly. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. Mom, Marcus finally spoke directly. It's not just about the fall. You've been forgetting things. This was news to me. Like what? Last month? You forgot Vanessa's birthday dinner, he said. I hadn't forgotten. I'd chosen not to attend after overhearing Vanessa tell one of her friends on the phone that having dinner with me was an obligation she had to suffer through. But I'd told Marcus I wasn't feeling well that night, not wanting to cause problems in his marriage. And you've been making mistakes with the store inventory, he continued. This was a half-truth at best. I'd been trying a new inventory system recommended by my supplier, and there had been a learning curve. You left the store unlocked overnight last week, Vanessa added. That was an outright lie. I hadn't left the store unlocked in 32 years of business. No, I didn't, I said, anger rising. See? You don't even remember, Vanessa said, her voice dripping with fake concern. She turned to Marcus. This is exactly what Dr. Peterson mentioned about early signs. What doctor? I demanded. I haven't seen any doctor about my memory. Marcus at least had the decency to look ashamed. We spoke to a geriatric specialist about your symptoms, Mom, just to get some advice. I stood up, my legs steady despite the storm inside me. Get out. Mom! Get out of my house, both of you, when you're ready to talk to me with respect. Without lying about me behind my back, you can come back. After they left, I sat in Bernard's old recliner and cried for the first time since his funeral. What was happening to my family? What was Vanessa after? The next morning, I called Richard Washington again. I need to understand exactly what my assets are and how they're protected, I told him. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned more about my financial situation than I had in years of running the business. Bernard and I had done well, better than I'd realized. The store generated steady income, and the property had quadrupled in value since we purchased it. We also had a modest life insurance policy that had paid out after Bernard's death, most of which I'd invested on the advice of Marcus, plus our home that was fully paid off. All told, I was worth close to $1.5 million on paper, not wealthy by any means, but comfortable, and apparently tempting. I updated my will with a lawyer Richard recommended, Patricia Coleman. She was a no-nonsense black woman in her 50s who asked direct questions and gave clear advice. Mrs. Jones, do you want to establish a power of attorney for healthcare and finances in case you become incapacitated? She asked. Is that the document that would let someone make decisions for me if I can't? Exactly. Many people choose an adult child for this role. I thought about Marcus discussing my symptoms with a doctor I'd never met. About Vanessa's transparent interest in the value of my store. Can I name someone other than family? Patricia didn't bat an eye. Absolutely. It should be someone you trust completely, who understands and will respect your wishes. I named Evelyn as my healthcare power of attorney and Richard Washington as my financial power of attorney, with specific limitations and oversight requirements built in. This is unusual but thorough, Patricia commented as we finalized the documents. May I ask why you're not naming your son? I hesitated, not wanting to speak poorly of Marcus. Let's just say I'm concerned about undue influence from certain quarters. Patricia gave me a knowing look. Say no more. I've seen it all in this line of work. As we were wrapping up, she handed me a card. This is for Dr. Sarah Jenkins. She's a neuropsychologist who can do a full cognitive assessment. Having an official record of your cognitive status now could be valuable if questions arise later. I understood her meaning and made the appointment. Dr. Jenkins was thorough, putting me through hours of memory tests, problem-solving exercises, and general health evaluations. 2 weeks later, I returned to review the results. Mrs. Jones, your cognitive function is absolutely normal for your age, she said, showing me charts and percentiles. You show no signs of dementia or any concerning memory loss. Your executive function, planning, decision-making, judgment, is particularly strong. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Could you put that in writing, Doctor? Already done, she smiled, handing me a detailed report. I've also included recommendations for maintaining cognitive health as you age. Armed with this documentation and my updated legal papers, I felt more secure. But I still hadn't confronted Marcus and Vanessa directly. Part of me hoped my son would come to his senses without forced intervention. That hope died 3 days later. I was at the store when Mr. Davis from the bank came in. He'd been our banker for over a decade, helping with small business loans when we'd renovated the store after a pipe burst 5 years ago. Mrs. Jones, he said quietly, glancing around to make sure no customers were nearby. I wanted to come by in person because something unusual came up, and given our history, I thought you should know. My heart sank. What is it? Your son came in yesterday, asking about the business loan and property deed. He said you were considering selling and wanted to understand the payoff amount and process. I gripped the counter. I'm not selling, Mr. Davis, and I never asked Marcus to inquire about that. He nodded solemnly. I thought as much. He had a woman with him, his wife, Vanessa. Yes, she seemed... particularly interested in the current market appraisal of the property. She mentioned something about you moving to assisted living soon and wanting to tie up loose ends. I thanked Mr. Davis for his discretion and loyalty. After he left, I locked the store early and drove straight to Marcus and Vanessa's house in Buckhead. A sprawling place with a manicured lawn that always made me feel like I should have worn better shoes. Vanessa's car wasn't in the driveway, but Marcus's was. Good. I needed to talk to my son alone. He looked surprised when he opened the door. Mom, is everything okay? No, everything is not okay, I said, walking past him into the foyer with its ridiculous crystal chandelier. Why were you and Vanessa at the bank asking about my store's mortgage? His face fell, and he ran a hand over his close-cropped hair, a gesture so like his father's that it momentarily softened my anger. Let's sit down, Mom. I'll stand. Thank you. He sighed. It's not what you think. We're just trying to help you plan for the future. My future is not yours to plan, Marcus. I'm not selling the store, and I'm not moving into assisted living. Mom, be reasonable. You're almost 70. Running that store in that neighborhood isn't safe. And it's a lot of work. Work I've been doing successfully since before you were born, I reminded him. What's really going on here, Marcus? Is this about money? Are you and Vanessa in some kind of trouble? He looked offended. No, we're doing fine. Great, actually. Vanessa just made partner at her firm. And I'm up for promotion. Then why the sudden interest in my assets? He wouldn't meet my eyes. It's not about the money, Mom. It's about making sure you're taken care of. Like checking on my memory with doctors I've never met? Lying about me leaving the store unlocked? That kind of taking care? He at least had the grace to look ashamed. Vanessa thought... I don't care what Vanessa thought, I cut him off. I care what my son thinks, the son I raised to be honest and respectful. Before he could respond, we heard the garage door opening. Vanessa was home. When she walked in and saw me, her smile froze. Millicent, what a surprise. I was just asking Marcus why you two were at the bank inquiring about my store, I said, watching her carefully. She didn't miss a beat. Oh, we were just trying to understand your financial picture better to help with estate planning. Nothing to worry about. Estate planning, I repeated. Planning for my death, you mean? Everyone should have a plan, she said smoothly, setting down her designer handbag. At your age, it's particularly important, especially with your memory issues. I don't have memory issues, I stated firmly. In fact, I just had a full cognitive assessment that confirms I'm perfectly sound. This seemed to catch her off guard, but she recovered quickly. Well, that's wonderful news. But still, the physical demands of running a store are mine to manage, I finished for her. Now, I want both of you to listen carefully. I'm not selling my store. I'm not moving into assisted living. I'm not incapable or incompetent. And from now on, you will not make inquiries about my finances or health without my explicit permission. Is that clear? Marcus looked torn, but Vanessa's expression hardened. I think you're being obstinate, Millicent. We're only trying to help. No, I said, looking directly at her. You're trying to control. There's a difference. I turned to leave, but paused at the door. And Marcus, Sunday dinner at my house this week. Just you. We need to talk, son to mother. He nodded, something like relief crossing his face. As I drove home, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and strength. The confrontation had been necessary, but it had also confirmed my worst fears. My daughter-in-law saw me as an obstacle or an opportunity, not as family. And my son was caught in the middle, too weak or conflicted to stand up to her. But I was Millicent Jones. I'd survived far worse than a greedy daughter-in-law. When Sunday came, I prepared all of Marcus's favorites: fried chicken, collard greens with smoked turkey instead of ham hocks, a concession to his health consciousness, mac and cheese, cornbread, and peach cobbler. The smell of home filled every corner of the house, and I hoped it would remind him of who he was and where he came from. Marcus arrived on time, but he wasn't alone. Vanessa was with him. I hope you don't mind, he said apologetically as they entered. Vanessa wanted to clear the air after our last conversation. I looked at her perfect pantsuit, her calculated smile, and knew this wasn't about clearing air. This was about control. Of course, I lied. There's plenty of food. Dinner was a tense affair, with Vanessa complimenting the food in that patronizing way of hers, while steering the conversation toward my future plans at every opportunity. You know, Millicent, she said as we moved to the living room with coffee, the real estate market won't stay this hot forever. It might be the perfect time to consider selling the store. We could help you get top dollar. The store isn't for sale, I repeated, my patience wearing thin. But if it were, she pressed, you could have a very comfortable retirement. Golden Sunset has these beautiful garden apartments. Vanessa, Marcus interrupted, surprising both of us. Mom said she's not interested. She shot him a look that could have frozen hell. I'm just laying out options, honey. Well, since we're talking options, I said, setting down my coffee cup, let me lay out mine. I've updated my will and established powers of attorney, not with Marcus, by the way. I've had a full cognitive assessment that confirms I'm of sound mind, and I've documented every conversation and action you two have taken regarding my property and business. Vanessa's smile disappeared. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. If you continue to go behind my back, to lie about my mental state, or to interfere with my business, there will be consequences. Marcus looked stricken. Mom, you're making this sound like we're enemies. Are we? I asked him directly. Because from where I sit, it feels that way. I raised you better than this, Marcus. He flinched as if I'd slapped him. Vanessa stood abruptly. I think we should go. Clearly Millicent is upset and not thinking rationally. I'm thinking perfectly rationally, I countered, remaining seated. That's what scares you, isn't it? After they left, I sat in the quiet house, wondering if I'd gone too far. Had I just pushed my only child away? But what choice did I have? I wouldn't be bullied or manipulated, not even by family. The next day, I received a text from Marcus. I'm sorry about yesterday. Can we talk? Just us. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, the park where I used to take him to play as a child. It was a warm day, and we sat on a bench watching children on the playground. I've been thinking about what you said, he began after a few minutes of awkward silence, about raising me better. I waited, letting him find his words. You did raise me better, he admitted. Dad, too. You both taught me about honesty, respect, working hard for what you earn. Then why are you letting Vanessa lead you into dishonesty? I asked gently. He looked down at his hands. It's complicated, Mom. Vanessa, she has big plans. She wants us to move up in the world. And I'm what? Holding you back? Not you, he said quickly. But the store, the neighborhood, she thinks they tie you to a past that's keeping you from enjoying your senior years. I almost laughed. My senior years? Marcus, I'm 69, not 90. And that store, that neighborhood, they're not my past. They're my present, my choice. I know, he sighed. I tried to explain that to her, but she doesn't understand. Where she comes from, success means moving up and away, not staying put. And what does success mean to you? I asked, watching his face carefully. He was quiet for a long moment. I used to think it meant making you and Dad proud. Now I don't know anymore. My heart ached for him. Being successful and making us proud aren't mutually exclusive, son. But they have to be based on your values, not someone else's. Vanessa isn't a bad person. Mom, he said defensively, she just sees the world differently. I'm not saying she's bad, I clarified, but her values and mine are clearly different. And when it comes to my life and my choices, my values are the ones that matter. We talked for over an hour, more openly than we had in years. He admitted that Vanessa had been pushing the assisted living idea for months, convinced that the sale of my store and house could fund not only my care, but also provide a family inheritance they could use for investment opportunities. She's been researching ways to establish guardianship if you refused, he confessed, unable to meet my eyes. That's why she's been focused on your memory, trying to document any lapses. My blood ran cold. And you went along with this? Not entirely, he said quickly. I told her I wouldn't support any legal action. But I did think maybe the assisted living idea made sense. The neighborhood around the store has gotten rougher in some ways. It's also gotten more valuable, I pointed out. Is that the real appeal? He didn't answer directly, which was answer enough. Marcus, I said, taking his hand, I love you. You're my son, and nothing will change that. But I need you to understand that I am capable of making my own decisions. If the day comes when I truly need help, I'll ask for it. But that day isn't today, and it's not Vanessa's call to make. I understand, he said softly. I'll talk to her. But talking, it turned out, wasn't enough. 3 weeks later, I received a certified letter from a law firm representing Marcus and Vanessa Jones. They were petitioning for guardianship, claiming I showed signs of cognitive decline and inability to manage financial affairs, putting myself at risk of exploitation. The evidence they cited included the fall in the store, witnessed episodes of confusion, all fabricated, and concerning financial decisions, unspecified. They requested temporary emergency guardianship pending a full hearing. I called Patricia Coleman immediately. This is exactly why we did that cognitive assessment, she said grimly after reviewing the letter, and why we set up those powers of attorney with non-family members. They've overplayed their hand, but we need to take this very seriously. Over the next few days, we assembled our counter-response. Dr. Jenkins's comprehensive cognitive assessment, statements from regular customers at the store attesting to my mental acuity, financial records showing the business's steady profitability under my management, and affidavits from Evelyn and other longtime friends regarding my day-to-day functioning. We also documented the timeline of Marcus and Vanessa's suspicious inquiries about the value of my property and their efforts to move me into assisted living against my wishes. This looks like a clear case of granny snatching, Patricia told me. That's when family members try to get guardianship of an elderly relative primarily to gain control of their assets. Courts have become more aware of this form of elder abuse in recent years. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, I received a temporary restraining order preventing Marcus and Vanessa from entering my store or home, thanks to Patricia's quick legal work. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Bernard's chair, wishing he were here to help me through this. "What would you do, Bernard?" I whispered into the empty room. "How did we raise a son who would do this?" The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully in my best church suit, navy blue with a subtle pinstripe, paired with the pearl necklace Bernard had given me on our 25th anniversary. I wanted to look dignified, capable, exactly what I was. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble and echoes, but I held my head high as Patricia and I made our way to the designated courtroom. Inside, I saw Marcus and Vanessa seated with a sharp-looking white man in an expensive suit. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes, but Vanessa stared directly at me, her expression challenging. As we waited for the judge, Patricia whispered, "Remember, let me do the talking unless directly addressed by the judge. Stay calm, no matter what they claim." The hearing began with Marcus and Vanessa's attorney presenting their case. He painted a picture of me as a declining elderly woman, confused and vulnerable, stubbornly refusing help from loving family members concerned only with my welfare. "Mrs. Jones experienced a fall at her place of business," he stated, as if a simple stumble was evidence of incapacity. "She has been observed forgetting appointments, making errors in business management, and demonstrating poor judgment regarding her safety." He went on to suggest that my resistance to assisted living was itself evidence of impaired judgment. Mrs. Jones insists on remaining in a high-crime neighborhood, running a convenience store at nearly 70 years of age, rather than accepting the secure retirement environment her son and daughter-in-law have arranged for her. When Patricia's turn came, she was methodical and devastating. "Your Honor, what we have here is not a case of an incapacitated elder, but a transparent attempt at financial exploitation disguised as concern," she began, laying out our evidence piece by piece. She presented Dr. Jenkins's assessment, the financial record showing my competent management, and the affidavits from community members. Then she addressed the timeline of Marcus and Vanessa's sudden interest in my assets. Within weeks of inquiring about the market value of Mrs. Jones's property, and after being explicitly told she was not interested in selling, the petitioners began constructing a false narrative of cognitive decline. They consulted a doctor who never examined Mrs. Jones, made inquiries about her mortgage without her knowledge, and presented her with assisted living arrangements as a fait accompli. The judge, an older black woman with penetrating eyes, listened carefully, occasionally glancing at Marcus and Vanessa. Furthermore, Patricia continued, Mrs. Jones took the proactive step of arranging a full neuropsychological assessment, specifically because she anticipated this situation developing. The results, as you can see, show her to be fully competent. When Patricia finished, the judge addressed me directly. "Mrs. Jones, I'd like to hear from you. In your own words, why do you believe your son and daughter-in-law have initiated these proceedings?" I stood, smoothing my skirt, and spoke clearly. "Your Honor, I believe they want control of my assets, particularly my store and the land it sits on. The property has become valuable as the neighborhood develops, and Vanessa, who works in real estate, has repeatedly pressured me to sell. When I refused, they began suggesting I was forgetful, confused, unable to manage on my own, none of which is true. And why do you wish to keep the store rather than sell it and enjoy retirement? Because it's not just a store to me, Your Honor. It's my husband's and my life's work. It's my connection to my community, my purpose. I'm not ready to sit in a rocking chair. I'm still contributing, still independent, and the store allows me to be both." The judge nodded thoughtfully. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, she said, turning to Marcus and Vanessa. Do either of you wish to address the court? Marcus looked to his attorney, who shook his head slightly, but Marcus stood anyway. I want to withdraw our petition, Your Honor. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Vanessa grabbed his arm, her face a mask of fury, but he gently removed her hand. The allegations in our petition are not accurate, he continued, his voice gaining strength. My mother is not incapacitated or confused. She's exactly who she's always been, strong, independent, and clear-minded. I allowed myself to be convinced otherwise, and I was wrong. The judge raised an eyebrow. Mr. Jones, are you saying you filed false statements with this court? He swallowed hard. Yes, Your Honor, I did. I have no excuse except that I lost sight of what my parents taught me about honesty and respect. I'm deeply ashamed. Vanessa stood abruptly. Your Honor, my husband is under duress. His mother has manipulated him emotionally. Sit down, Mrs. Jones, the judge said firmly, unless you're prepared to testify under oath. Vanessa hesitated, then sank back into her seat, seething. The judge turned back to Marcus. Mr. Jones, this is a serious admission. Filing false statements in a guardianship case is potentially a criminal offense. I understand, Your Honor, he said quietly. The judge considered for a moment. Given your voluntary withdrawal and admission, I'm dismissing this case with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. Mrs. Jones, she addressed me. You are clearly of sound mind and fully capable of managing your affairs. This court affirms your right to do so without interference. She looked sternly at Marcus and Vanessa. I'm also issuing an order prohibiting the petitioners from making any further attempts to control Mrs. Jones's assets or living arrangements without her express written consent. And Mr. Jones, while I appreciate your honesty today, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for review. Whether they pursue charges for filing false statements will be at their discretion. She banged her gavel, and it was over. In the hallway outside, Patricia squeezed my hand. Congratulations, Mrs. Jones. This was a clear victory. Thank you, I said, feeling more tired than triumphant. Winning was necessary, but it brought no joy. Not against my own son. As Patricia gathered her documents, Marcus approached tentatively. Vanessa was nowhere to be seen. Mom, he said softly, can we talk? I nodded and we moved to a quiet corner of the hallway. I don't even know how to begin to apologize, he said, his eyes wet with unshed tears. What we did, it was unforgivable. Why, Marcus? I asked, the question that had kept me awake for weeks. Why would you do this? He shook his head, ashamed. It started small. Vanessa kept pointing out how hard you were working, how you deserved to rest. It seemed reasonable. Then she talked about the property values, how the store site could set you up for life and still leave a legacy for us, for any children we might have. And the lies about my memory. Those were Vanessa's idea, he admitted. She said no court would remove your autonomy just because you wanted to keep working, that we needed to show you were incapable. I knew it was wrong, but by then, we were already committed to the assisted living contract, the plans for the property. I let myself believe we were helping you even as we deceived you. Where is Vanessa now? She left. Said she couldn't believe I'd thrown away everything they'd planned. He gave a bitter laugh. Apparently she'd already started negotiations with a developer who was interested in the whole block, including your store. There were commissions, incentives. I felt a deep sadness for my son. What will you do now? Face the consequences, he said simply. If the DA presses charges, I'll plead guilty. I won't contest a divorce if that's what Vanessa wants. And I'll find a way to make this right with you, Mom. Somehow. As we stood there in that cold marble hallway, I saw my son clearly for the first time in years, flawed, weak in some ways, but also capable of truth and remorse. Not so different from his mother, really. It will take time, Marcus, I told him honestly. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. I know, he nodded, but I have time, and if you'll let me, I'd like to start by helping at the store on weekends. No strings, no expectations, just a son helping his mother. The way it should have been all along. That was 6 months ago. The district attorney ultimately decided not to press charges against Marcus, partly due to his voluntary admission in court, and partly, I suspect, because I made it clear I didn't wish to see my son prosecuted. Vanessa filed for divorce, which became final last month. Marcus moved into a modest apartment not far from my neighborhood and has been coming to the store every weekend as promised. At first it was awkward, the betrayal still fresh between us, but slowly we've begun to find our way back to each other. Last week I finally agreed to let him look at the store books again, a small step toward rebuilding trust. He noticed some tax advantages I'd been missing and helped implement a new inventory system that's actually making my life easier. The neighborhood continues to change around us. A new organic grocery opened 2 blocks away, and a coffee shop is coming in across the street. Rather than compete directly, I've been adapting, adding more fresh produce, local products, and specialty items that the big chains don't carry. Marcus has been helping with a website and delivery service for elderly neighbors who can't easily shop in person. As for the store property, I've decided to place it in a community land trust upon my death, ensuring it remains affordable for local businesses rather than being swallowed by luxury development. Marcus supported this decision wholeheartedly, which told me more about his growth than any apology could. Evelyn still checks in on me regularly, and we laugh about how I've become something of a neighborhood legend after the court case. Don't mess with Mother Jones, they say at the barber shop. I like the sound of that. Yesterday, as we were closing up, Marcus paused while counting the register. You know, Mom, I've been thinking about Dad a lot lately, about what he would think of all this. What conclusion did you come to? I asked. Curious. He'd be disappointed in me, Marcus said honestly, but I think he'd be proud of how you stood your ground. That's what he always admired about you, your backbone. I smiled, remembering Bernard's favorite compliment. My Millie doesn't bend in the wind, she makes the wind change direction. Your father wasn't perfect, I told Marcus. None of us are. But he understood that family means protecting each other, not exploiting each other. I think he'd be sad about what happened, but hopeful about where we are now. As we locked up and walked to our cars, the setting sun painted the old brick buildings in gold. My store, Bernard's and mine, stood solid on its corner, just as it had for decades, adapting but enduring. Like me. I may be 69 years old with arthritis in my knees and silver in my hair, but there's nothing wrong with my memory or my mind, and I'm still here, still running Jones's Corner Market, still making my own decisions. Some might call it stubbornness. I call it dignity, and no one, not even family, gets to take that away. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.